Hey guys, I'm Michael Corsentino. Welcome to the May issue of Shutter Magazine, and this month we're looking at low-key lighting. All right, so let's dig in a little bit more deeply into what we were doing with the lighting pattern that we created and what was happening behind the scenes with some of the gear that we used. So let's go back to our blank canvas, and we're going to start off with our background. Naturally, I used a collapsible background, black background from Westcott. These are available from lots of different vendors. I was just happening to be using that one. Then we had our subject, in this case me, for my mean muggin portrait, and our camera position right here. So the first thing that I want to do, as I said in the article, is to establish what's going on with my main light. So let's turn on our main light layer there for a second, take a look at what we've got going on. We have positioned to the right of me a Mola beauty dish with a 500 watt Profoto mono heads fired through it. With there's no diffusion on the beauty dish. It just has the kind of diffusion disc at the center, but no ancillary diffusion. There's a diffusion sock that most beauty dishes come with. I'm not using that because I want a more specular, kind of a punchy look. I've got that all supported on a nice heavy-duty Kupo grip lighting stand, and I'm at f11 on my camera, about 2 feet away from my face for this portrait. So the next thing I want to do is bring in my kicker light or accent light. So let's take a look at the right light. Again, I'm using a Profoto 500 watt second D1 Airhead. I think I said in the article it was a 20-degree grid spot on there. My bad, it's a 10-degree grid spot. It's placed about 4.5 feet from me at f4.5. Or based up from the main light. And the main light really, all the ratios for the various lights that we're going to have in this setup are based off of the main light. So that's going to be our variable. Everything else will follow suit, will fall into place based on what the main light is. So in this case, I'm 2 2/3 stops less light than the key light. And if I'm using the little clicker on the remote that Profoto has and some other light manufacturers also have, it's 2 6/10 stops less light than the key light. All right. Basically what I'm using this is to create a nice little kiss of light on the back shoulder or cheek on the subject, in this case me. Let's turn on our left kicker and accent light now, and I've used a little bit of a wider light source, a little octa over here, again with a Profoto 500 watt second D1 Airhead and a PhotoFlex small octa. And that is 3.5 feet from me at f6.3, or 1 2/3 less light stops than the key light. So I wanted a little bit more light, a little bit more of a broad source, just to throw a little bit extra light. But again, it's less light than the key light. So everything's going to fall into place, as I said, based on what the key light is, how much light you want, either less light or more light based on what the key light is kicking out. That's how I think about light ratios. I don't really get too caught up in 2-to-1 or 3-to-1. It's basically what looks good, and how many stops less light am I at, and then I can replicate this whenever I want. All right, so let's see what's next. One of the things I wanted to point out is, for those of you who read last month's article, we talked about wedge light and accent light, and that is exactly what's happening here. But here we're combining both wedge light and access light together to create a really sophisticated kind of multi-layered lighting effect. So let's take a look at that. If we look, I don't know if you guys can see my mouse, but I'm going to turn on our access light ratio here, or relationship, and you can see here that you've got each light is facing each other, the key and the left accent light facing each other, and opposing the subject, in this case me. So that's creating our access lighting, and it creates light on the right and light on the left, and some shadowing on the left, because my accent light on the left is only kind of giving some light to the shoulder and the side of the face. And then the wedge light comes in here. Okay, so we're combining both. So here we've got our wedge, and this is traditionally, I could use this around the front of the subject and kind of rotate it around, but it can also be used behind to create some really interesting patterns. And that's what we've going on here, a combination of access light and wedge light together to create the low-key portraits that we did here. Let's see if I'm missing anything else here. Oh yeah, for the portrait that we did of Dennis, which is this one. Let's turn off these other layers. Start with. There we go. For our portraits of Dennis, all that we did was just kind of turn the model around. Let's turn back on that, and we just put Dennis there. So just by turning the model a little bit, I mean, it changes everything. You don't really need to move your lights. There's a lot that you can do with the same light setup by just reorienting your model. And then of course you're free to move your lights as you want, but just always try moving your model as well, because you can create some very different and compelling lights. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this month's video for the magazine. I hope it's encouraged you and inspired you all to go out and try some low-key lighting. Until next month, this has been Michael Corsentino for Shutter Magazine. Get out there and light it up.